Now, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to discuss the state of human rights in Iran. Recently, the United Nations General Assembly's Third Committee condemned the human rights situation in Iran by adopting a resolution supported by 83 countries. The resolution, ladies and gentlemen, raises serious concerns regarding the heavy domestic crackdown in the country. The Iranian regime has accelerated the number of executions and has tragically embarked on a vicious persecution of political prisoners, journalists, although I disapprove of it, bloggers, lawyers, human rights and women's rights activists during the last months. At the same time, the regime is engulfed in acute crisis on several fronts, internally and internationally. Recently, the world was shocked to hear about the death of a young Iranian blogger, Satare Beheshti. This brutal regime has specifically targeted the members, supporters and relatives of the main Iranian opposition, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, who has since the creation of the absolute rule of the clergy spearheaded the struggle for a popular rule in Iran. We remember with sorrow three champions of freedom, Jafar Kazemi, Mohammad Haj Agai and Ali Samurai, who were hanged by the regime the year after the uprisings in 2009 that seriously challenged the position of the Iranian regime's rulers. The arbitrary nature of the Iranian regime's judiciary and its mistreatment of political prisoners are illustrated by the recent cases, including the cases of Mr. Khosravi, Ms. Mansouri, her brother Mohammed Ali Mansouri, and Mr. Mohammed Amirizi, along with many other political prisoners. But the international community must target the heads of the clerical regime, its supreme leader, and the commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards that make the backbone of the Iranian regime's oppressive machine. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I think it is time for accountability for those who are engaged in the systematic human rights violations in Iran we must use the strong voice of the UK and the UN and work together with our allies to bring the Iranian regime's appalling human rights record to the United Nations Security Council and ask that their murderous dossier is referred to international tribunal for the prosecution of those who violated the Iranian people's fundamental rights. The Iranian resistance, led by the President-elect, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, in their efforts to tear down the wall of repression in Iran and free the Iranian people who have suffered tremendously under the yoke of these turbaned tyrants. The most constructive steps in that regard are for our government to recognise the Iranian resistance and the Iranian people's aspirations for democracy and freedom, and to urge that the Iranian regime's top officials be prosecuted in international tribunals for crimes against humanity.
We are told that at least 450 people have been executed since the beginning of this year, and that 1,000 prisoners are even now languishing on death row. As to Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty, those who left Camp Ashraf for Camp Liberty had every right to expect that their rights as asylum seekers would be recognised and maintained. But they have been cruelly deceived and are now subject to prison-like conditions. It's surely right that the British government should join with others in calling on the UN to treat the people in Camp Liberty as refugees.
Thank you very much. I remain sitting. In my remarks, I would like to focus on the Iranian regime crackdown on family members of the Iranian opposition, the POMI members that are in Camp Ashraf. They're the target of this regime as a means of breaking their determination. Mrs. Amir Keish, and I say her name simply, but she represents a host of many families. She's 58, and she's one of the latest victims of this intimidation campaign. She was arrested in 2008 together with her two brothers, Hamid and Aishar, at Tehran's International Airport on their way to visit relatives in Camp Ashraf in Iraq. She was blinded in one eye as the regime henchmen hit her in the face by a cable. She's also about to lose the sight of her second eye due to ill treatment and torture. But the mullah's vicious hunt targets the whole family of the Ashraf residents and the Iranian resistance. Also in prison is her brother. He's 66 years of age and is a well-respected merchant in Tehran. Even his wife was held in detention for 1 year because she visited her daughter in the camp. And we should ask ourselves why. Why does this regime resort to such cruel and brutal prosecution, even if it knows it will spark international outrage? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is they're desperate. We call on our government to join in this effort to bring the dossier of Iran's brutal regime abuses to be raised at the United Nations Security Council and demand that it is referred to the international tribunals for accountability.
I'm glad that the PMI is now recognised by the United States. The NCRI, of which the PMI is a part, should be recognised as the legitimate parliament in exile. The Iranian opposition movement is powerful and brave. Many of us have been concerned about the residents of Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty. These are people supposed to be under UN protection. When by agreement a number of them moved to Camp Liberty, it was expected that the conditions there would improve for them. But unfortunately, this does not appear to be the case. The residents continue to be harassed and denied elementary human rights. Unfortunately, Martin Kobler from the UNMI appears more to be acting as a representative of the Iraqi government with its ties with the Iranians, rather than providing protection for the unfortunate residents of the camps. The result is that there is now no confidence in Mr. Kobler. There is no belief that the rights of residents can be properly protected and their ultimate relocation finalised. And there is demand that he be replaced. In the circumstances, I think that's an absolutely legitimate demand that we should support here.